What's up, YouTube? How y'all doing, man? Golly, that's crazy. Hey, Feds drop bombshell new video on Jeffrey Epstein, man. Good gracious. We've been waiting so long. Why are we waiting so long? Don't the government supposed to be for the people, by the people, or by the people, for the people, something like that? We want to see this stuff, man. Oh my God. Y'all hit that subscribe button, hit that bell. I don't know too much about this, man, because it's like, it's a big secret. That's the only thing I know, man. Hit that subscribe button, hit that bell. Let's check this bad boy out, man.
No
hey,
blackmail, no insidious murder plot. The Department of Justice is throwing cold water on Jeffrey Epstein conspiracy theories in a new memo. But some are crying foul. After months of waiting for the DOJ to release secret or hidden documents, the disappointment over their latest memo is palpable. But the government did release hours of video from a camera near Epstein's jail cell in its efforts to prove that Epstein took his own life. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime.
They're going to show you what they want you to see.
There is a lot of new information to go over concerning infamous pedophile and convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. It has been 6 years since he died in a New York City jail cell, apparently by his own hand, while the guards who were supposed to be watching him were distracted or asleep nearby. Now, the Department of Justice has just released more than 10 hours of video from inside the Metropolitan Correctional Center where Epstein was being housed ahead of his federal child sex trafficking trial back in 2019. Now, Epstein was accused of running this enormous trafficking scheme that involved finding young girls to give him massages and perform sexual acts, having those girls recruit more teens to be part of the alleged abuse, transporting them on his private jet nicknamed the Lolita Express to places like Little St. James Island, which Epstein owned. And multiple women have come forward over the years saying that Epstein and others sexually assaulted them when they were minors, teenagers. Epstein and his so-called madam and right-hand woman, Ghislaine Maxwell, they have been sued in civil court. They were taken to federal criminal court on the trafficking charges. After Epstein died in prison, the government still went ahead with charges against Ghislaine Maxwell. She was found guilty, serving out a 20-year prison sentence. Now, since Epstein's arrest, and certainly after his death in 2019, rumor and conjecture have been a large part of the conversation surrounding him. Many have claimed that Epstein kept this list of high-profile officials and celebrities that took part in his sex trafficking operation, presumably to blackmail them at a future date. And there were also rumors that Epstein may have secretly recorded encounters between these VIPs and minors. But there's never really been any confirmation of that per se. Now, President Donald Trump and his administration, they promised to release any and all of the information related to the Epstein investigation. But as it turns out, most of it is far too sensitive to ever release publicly, and most of what can be released already has been. Hey everybody, this is another Law and Crime legal alert. Did you know that children are being diagnosed with serious conditions like type 2 diabetes and non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, and the research is potentially after 6 days of 2019 and was found semi-conscious in his cell with injuries to his neck. He was put on suicide watch, held in an observation cell, but after 6 days was given the all clear by a doctor to go back to a special housing unit where he was supposed to have a roommate. But in August of 2019, Epstein's cellmate was transferred. No new cellmate was put in the room. Guards were supposed to check on Epstein every 30 minutes throughout the night. But the two guards who were assigned to watch him on August 10th apparently fell asleep or were somehow distracted. An investigation found that the two later falsified prison records. So obviously, people have thoughts about this. There was also, by the way, a lack of cameras. 2 cameras in front of Epstein's cell malfunctioned. This was according to the BOP. And a third had footage that was reportedly unusable. You wonder why there's so many theories? Now, guards found him dead in his cell when they distributed breakfast. His body was removed from the scene against BOP policy, and photos of his body, as it was found, were apparently never taken. In fact, I'll tell you what, we spoke with Jeffrey Epstein's brother Mark back in January of 2024 here on Sidebar, and at the time, he believed there was something suspicious about his brother's death.
I Dr. Michael Barden to witness the autopsy. The autopsy was performed by the city pathologist. I, as a family member, have the right to have my own pathologist be there and to conduct an autopsy once the body is claimed, if we deemed it was necessary.
And the reason I ask you that is because you just said a second ago you thought that, you know, your brother's death was a suicide, you were mourning his loss, but there seemed to be something to indicate to you, I want a second opinion, to someone to observe the autopsy, right? What was the reason you thought that?
Well, because in speaking with his attorneys, they had a suicide, and they were sort of surprised that he did it. So we figured, let's cover the bases and, make sure we have somebody there as well. Because one of the things that's not been out there much is that a few days after his death, there was a hearing scheduled to appeal the decision for bail. The first time when he was first arrested, his attorneys asked me if I would participate in his bail. And I said, yes. I said, put up my house in Florida. I knew my brother wasn't a flight risk, and he's my brother. I didn't care. And then bail was denied, which is why he was in jail. And then they were going to appeal the decision for bail. And Jeffrey was putting up a pretty big bail. And they asked me for the appeal if I would guarantee his bail. And I agreed, in essence, doubling it. So there was a chance he might have gotten bail. And that hearing was scheduled in, I think, for the 12th. In a couple of days. Okay. So then I'm thinking, if he was going to kill himself, wouldn't he wait to after the bail hearing? Because if he got bail, he'd be living in his house with an ankle monitor and armed guards and cameras, so he wouldn't disappear anywhere. Not that I thought he would try. And then if bail was denied again, then it would be a more compelling argument for him to kill himself if he wanted to.
Right.
A few days before the bail hearing makes no sense at all.
So do you have a theory as to what happened here? Because, there's a lot of speculation. There's a lot of conspiracy theories. There's a lot of innuendo. Do you have a theory as to what happened here?
Yes. My theory is that this was a targeted assassination.
But in recent months, FBI Director 𝗗𝗢𝗡𝗞𝗦 has testified that Jeffrey Epstein took his own life.
Did Jeffrey Epstein hang himself, or did somebody kill him?
Senator, I believe he hung himself in a cell in the Metropolitan Detention Center.
Are you going to release all the information about that?
Senator, we are working through that right now with the Department of Justice.
When you think you'll have it done, Cash?
For decades.
I think in the near future, sir.
This how they get down.
What kind of answer is that? There you go. That's right. Like before I die, like in the near future. What? What kind of answer is that?
Senator, we've been working on that, and we're doing it in a way that protects victims and also doesn't put out into the ether information that is irrelevant for production of the public, such as CSAM.
And when Director Patel says CSAM, he means child sexual abuse material. But I will tell you, despite comments from high-profile figures like 𝗗𝗢𝗡𝗞𝗦, influencers from both sides of the aisle have continued to push the story that this is all part of a cover-up, right? Just take a look at some of these YouTube video titles from last month. 𝗗𝗢𝗡𝗞𝗦 and Dan Bongino portray MAGA. 𝗗𝗢𝗡𝗞𝗦 lies about Epstein and Trump cover-up. 𝗗𝗢𝗡𝗞𝗦 covers up Epstein tapes on Rogan. So what is the Department of Justice saying now about Epstein's death, and what have we learned from the hours of jail surveillance footage that was just released? Well, to talk about it, let me bring on retired FBI agent Colin L. Schmidt. Colin, thanks so much for coming back here on Sidebar.
Thank you for having me.
All right, your reaction. The announcement from the DOJ. There's no client list, no more videos to be released. Surveillance apparently proving that no one approached Epstein's cell. What do you think?
Well, I just have to go by what was in the letter and actually read some excerpts of it. I actually have it up here, but I believe that's like the third or fourth paragraph. They say, we did not uncover evidence that could predicate an investigation against uncharged third parties. And then they go on the next paragraph and say, the review confirmed that Epstein harmed over 1,000 victims. So the two statements seem to be a little bit contradictory, because if you have 1,000 victims, how did he harm them, and were there third parties involved in harming those 1,000 victims? And based upon the trial, and in the trial of Giselle Maxwell, it came out that she was somebody who actually recruited victims for prostitution with these alleged third parties. So there just seems to be some contradictory statements in their own letter, which is going to obviously fuel just conspiracy theories are just going to go wild now.
I don't disagree with that. I'm sure this isn't going to quell the conversation. What's a reasonable explanation for that? How could you have those two statements, work hand in hand with each other?
Without having more information, I was never a part to any of this investigation, even though the entire FBI, there were several field offices involved in gathering evidence. Mm-hmm. They also said that I think they got gigabytes of video evidence from his house, thousands of pages of documentary evidence, and basically to say that there's nothing there to charge unidentified third parties. And maybe it's a statement that they're saying is no identified third parties in terms of extortion, which they talked about as well. But it just seems like the letter is just adding not even kerosene. I mean, they just dropped basically a whole fuel depot on the conspiracy theorists with this letter, and I think it's just going to cause more problems than it solves.
So before we dig into what the DOJ has to say about alleged evidence that was seized in its investigation of Epstein, I want to first talk about the video the department released showing nearly 11 hours of surveillance video from the Metropolitan Correctional Center in New York. Now, something I have to note here, this is a separate facility from the MDC, the Metropolitan Detention Center, where Sean Diddy Combs has been since his arrest on federal charges back in September. Sometimes people confuse the two, understandable. But according to the DOJ memo, quote, after a thorough investigation, FBI investigators concluded that Jeffrey Epstein committed suicide in his cell at the Metropolitan Correctional Center in New York City on August 10th, 2019. The FBI's independent review of this footage confirmed that from the time Epstein was locked in his cell at around 10:40 p.m. on August 9th, 2019, until around 6:30 a.m. the next morning, nobody entered any of the tiers in the SHU. SHU stands for Specialized Housing Unit. So the video starts at 7:40 p.m. Eastern Time on August 9th. It does not show Epstein's cell door, but according to the BOP, the Bureau of Prisons, anyone coming or going from that housing unit would have been seen on that camera. And you can see men walking around in orange jumpsuits and what appears to be a guard desk. At around 7:50 p.m., you can see a prisoner, believed to be Epstein, walking into the frame with a guard behind him, then down a set of stairs and across the room. Colin, so according to officials, if any sort of assassin had walked through to get to Epstein's cell, it would have been captured on this camera. They're releasing the footage. Is there anything that we should be looking at more when it comes to Epstein's death from this video?
It does help, quell some of the conspiracy theories, because now you're giving evidence that an independent person can review. However, based upon my understanding, there was 2 prison guards that were either fired or dismissed, and we haven't heard from them. And so that would be kind of the next logical step, is if you're going to reduce or release everything, okay, is the public going to have an opportunity, or Congress have an opportunity to talk to these 2 prison guards to find out what really happened? I think he did commit suicide based upon all the evidence that's available. However, the point of, are they going to be able to reduce all the conspiracy theories, and frankly, the energy in Congress to ask for more information? Once again, I don't think this letter is going to help. I think it's actually hurting their case.
Well, look at the video, right? Video is some of the most important evidence we can possibly have in any investigation or criminal case. Aside from, you could say, hey, listen, you have guards who were negligent, didn't do what they were supposed to do, right? You can make that argument. But the idea, if the video were to show something else, unless someone's making the accusation that the video was doctored and there's no evidence to support that whatsoever, to have the government release this To have the government, an administration who has been keen on saying we're going to, let everybody know what's happening with the Epstein files, to release this video is significant. And I think that's being used to stop the conversation, at least when it comes to Epstein's death. But at the same point, I'm sure people will digest this video, analyze this video, talk about if it was doctored or not. I'm sure that doesn't end. But, from an evidentiary point of view, is there any reason to doubt what we're seeing?
I don't think so. However, every hammer is going to find a nail, and people are going to look at that video and they're going to make their own conclusions. I would have liked to have seen them come out with a schematic and show where the video or where the cameras are located, as well as give a little bit more context to what we were seeing on that video. But once again, the public will never be satisfied.
Man, they think we believe anything, dog. They think we believe anything. I can't see the cell. I don't see how many other cells is beside them. Now you see these cells. Oh my God, dude, there's about 1,000 holes in this one thing that they talking about. Not only, I edit video. You get this footage from a whole different day, slap some dates up there and everything, and tell us that this is the date. Look, ain't nobody went in and out. Come on, man.
Satisfied because this case
I'm nowhere near satisfied.
It is still so salacious.
Nowhere near satisfied. And I'm not saying that they did all this. Only thing I'm saying is this. When they're going to show the video again, watch.
It will never go away.
So let's talk about the video evidence against Epstein. Here's what the memo says, quote, to ensure that the review was thorough, the FBI conducted digital searches of its databases, hard drives, and network drives, as well as physical searches of squad areas, locked cabinets, desks, closets, and other areas where responsive material may have been stored. These searches uncovered a significant amount of material, including more than 300 gigabytes of data and physical evidence. Colin, locked cabinets, desks. You think that they were looking at all these places for hidden Epstein files? That's quite the statement too.
Well, and based upon my experience in the FBI, that does happen. That stuff doesn't make it into the evidence locker, so to speak, because some kind of case there's so many moving parts and so many different employees or agents involved that things do tend to be stored, so to speak, in your squad area, and they may not be relevant to the case. It might just be some regular old computer searches or something you printed out. But the point of the whole exercise was 300 gigabytes of video evidence. So that means that that's video evidence of people doing something most likely they should not have been doing. So my question.
That's 300 gigabytes, they said. Gigabytes. Diddy had 90 terabytes. 300 terabyte is it 100? I forgot. Once you get, terabyte is 1,000. So he got, I think that's 3 terabytes. Don't quote me. Look it up. How many gigabytes I got to look it up myself. But he said 300 gigabytes. They had 90 terabytes on Diddy.
Question is, okay, we
have footage.
The victim. Who was with that victim? I don't necessarily think it was Epstein with 1,000 victims. Were there other people involved? And are we ever going to be able to find out?
Of course there was other people. Why you think the man got a plane? These freak off and these freaky men that got big time money will pay $50,000 to be on that plane to go over there to have the freak off of their life with some little young girl that they know they can't get at. Are you kidding me, man? You can see right through this mess. Oh my God,
who those people were.
Now we know
that's
that
why
Attorney General 𝗟𝗡𝗞𝗦 has spoken about the sheer number of videos, the manpower allocated to going through them all. Take a look.
James Comer said yesterday that all the Epstein files are missing. Can you confirm the status of them? They still haven't heard from you.
No, the FBI, they're reviewing, there are tens of thousands of videos of Epstein with children or child porn, and there are hundreds of victims.
All you gotta do is show us 1 or 2. How long it take for you to go through all these videos? Really? A week I'd have been like, here go one right here. Show them this. Tell them we still looking, though. Tell them we still looking.
And no one victim will ever get released. It's just the volume, and that's what they're going through right now. The FBI is diligently going through that. I haven't seen that statement, but I'll call him later and find out.
So according to the DOJ memo, though, the files related to Epstein include a large number of images of Epstein, images and videos of victims who are either minors or appear to be minors, and over 10,000 downloaded videos and images of illegal child sex abuse material and other pornography. Teams of agents, analysts, attorneys, and privacy and civil liberties experts comb through the digital and documentary evidence with the aim of providing as much information as possible to the public while simultaneously protecting victims. Much of the material is subject to court-ordered sealing. Only a fraction of this material would have been aired publicly had Epstein gone to trial, as the seal served only to protect victims and did not expose any additional third parties to allegations of illegal wrongdoing. Through this review, we found no basis to revisit the disclosure of those materials and will not permit the release of child pornography. So, Colin, look, on one hand, I get it, right? I get it. If the majority of what they have right now is material they can't release because it would jeopardize these alleged victims and it serves no purpose other to put them at risk, I get it, right? What is the value of it? Do you think that this is a situation where there was a lot of conversation going into this? It's maybe going back on their word, the department going back on their word, or they promised too much, they had assumptions, they had expectations, and when you look at the real, concrete, hard evidence going through it, there's not much more there. And they realize that through this, if we take them at their word, their thorough investigation.
I think you hit on a great point is many times politicians will comment on something without having the context or all the facts. And then they end up having to walk back whatever they said.
I got one for you. If they look through all this evidence and they ain't have no evidence, right? He ain't do nothing. So why he kill himself? He committed suicide. So why did he kill himself? Make up your mind. What side you gonna play on? So if they ain't had nothing on them, I'm in jail. They don't have nothing on me. They done got all this video footage of me and my wife having fun. You know, I ain't done nothing I ain't had no business doing. All this evidence. So I'm gonna kill myself even though I ain't do nothing. Yeah, okay. That's what they want us to believe. You hear that? That's crazy.
There's not much more there. And they realize that through this, if we take them at their word, their thorough investigation.
I think you hit on a great point is many times politicians will comment on something without having the context or all the facts. And then they end up having to walk back whatever they said. I think this might be one of those cases because of just the sheer volume of evidence that was seized by the FBI in this investigation. But it also comes back to the point of only two people were brought to justice for his crimes. And he was arrested the first time for being engaged in prostitution. 𝗟𝗓𝗡𝗞𝗦 was involved in prostitution. So where are the third parties that were with these victims and who are they? So the other thing I think they're concerned about is if they bring one or two people to justice, they're going to open up they're going to break the dam, and then there's going to be a public outcry that everybody must go. So the DOJ and the FBI is kind of caught in a very catch-22 because they're darned if they do and they're darned if they don't. So,
well, let's talk about that. So when you say, I mean, you make a point, right? Ghislaine Maxwell was convicted of sex trafficking to who, right? But when they say, and this is one of the biggest revelations from this memo, that there's no list of people allegedly involved in Epstein's crimes, right? Quote, this systematic review revealed no incriminating client list. There was also no credible evidence found that Epstein blackmailed prominent individuals as part of his actions. We did not uncover evidence that could predicate an investigation against uncharged third parties, which is what you mentioned before, Colin. But what has been released is a contact book, right, that was found in Epstein's home, contained hundreds of names, including those of celebrities, politicians. But you have to remember, Epstein was a very well-connected financier. He knew a lot of people. being included in that contact book doesn't mean that those people were part of any illegal activity or had knowledge of what was going on or were part of some alleged trafficking operation. So the question is, will we get more information? It seems like no. The memo reads, while we have labored to provide the public with maximum information regarding Epstein and ensured examination of any evidence in the government's possession, it is the determination of the Department of Justice and the Federal Bureau of Investigation that no further disclosure would be appropriate or warranted. Colin, bunch of questions here. So first of all, based on what you know of this case, is it surprising that, according to them, they're saying there's really no Epstein list, there's no contact list? Because on one hand, you could say that was something that that was one of the theories that came out as everybody was learning more about Epstein. He must have blackmailed people. He must have been a covert spy. He must have had information about people. Or does it say to you, something's not sitting right, I'm not taking them at face value, and are they completely closing this? Are they saying we're no longer going to investigate? There's a difference to say we're not releasing any more information, but can they still look at something? And what would jumpstart an investigation again? So I threw a lot of questions at you. First, let's start. Do you buy that there's no client list?
I do and I don't. There's a list, or you could compile a list because you have 1,000 victims. So that's the first step. What they're saying, there was no list that was used to extort other individuals. So taking that at face value, that's most likely correct. Now, the second part is this the end of this? I think not. I think Congress, especially the Republican members of Congress, are going to really raise hell over this, and they're going to push for more investigation, and they're going to push the DOJ to release more. This is going to, and I think this is not the last chapter. I think this might have just turned this into the first chapter of a new book.
So you think it's going to take that effort to continue an investigation? You don't believe that the FBI, they're putting out a statement here, but the FBI is really conducting an investigation behind the scenes that we just don't know about. They don't have to publicly announce an investigation.
Yeah, and I don't know that. I don't even want to speculate on what the FBI is doing behind the scenes. I just want to, look at the evidence we have in front of us. I think that there's going to be a lot of pressure, though, on the FBI and the DOJ to be more forthright and bring out even more information, and on President Trump, because there was lots and lots of promises made, and frankly, he's been keeping his promises. And I think from both sides of the aisle, there's going to be a lot of pressure to know who's on those videos with those victims.
Or could it just be it's Epstein and alleged victims, and that's it? There's no one else there.
Yeah, and in defense of the FBI and the DOJ, they want to move on. There's plenty of crime out there. There's plenty of stuff going on: immigration, violent crime, white collar. The threat from Iran. I mean, the FBI is spread really thin, and I don't blame them. They want to move on. This has burned up a lot of man hours and time and resources that could have been put towards other things and other new victims of child sex exploitation. So I completely understand, like, especially Dan Bongino and 𝗗𝗢𝗡𝗞𝗦. They're like, look, we've got new stuff to deal with. This is from 7 years ago.
7 years ago.
In our society, everybody is a part of a conspiracy, and they want to get answers. And then the politicians will only, lean in and want to push more because this is salacious information for the public.
Well, it is different because he was so powerful, and he was so wealthy, and he was so well connected. And I mean, this was going on,
and there was
for
so
years,
many government
for years.
officials.
I mean, 1,000 victims. How was that even possible? So I understand people having questions, and I understand that people will want to continue the conversation. And I also understand the FBI and law enforcement and officials going through this material is not easy. It is not easy. So I agree with you. I think they want to move on. Will this be moving on? I don't know. We'll wait and see. Colin Schmidt, thanks so much for taking the time. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
All right, everybody. That's all we have for you right now here on Sidebar.
Man, 2019 is when he passed away. 2019 is when he passed away. I hang up on Jeffrey Epstein victim. FBI trying to report trafficking lawsuit. 19, 20, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, that's right. I use my fingers to make sure I'm right. 6 years, man, and y'all still ain't got shit. 6 years. Really? You got all them tapes and you know what the problem is? That's just like they lied in 9/11. They lied with the Watergate. So you mean to tell me the government always tell 100% the truth? This government never tried to cover up anything. Is that what you telling me? That's what you think? We got the good old government. They covering up some stuff because they know some high powerful people was going to that island for a regular base partying and having fun, but this is our little secret. You gotta be introduced, you gotta be welcomed into that club. Play with me, don't play with me, man. I'm like, come on now. Everything, you got an excuse for everything but the truth. Y'all take it slow. Tell them Uncle Mike told you so. Look, y'all broke my this is broke, man. I done broke this. Look, watch this. It's going down. It won't stay up. Y'all take it slow. Tell them Uncle Mike told you so. Peace out.